Thank you for having me, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman. This is the bill that speaks to open schools. As you know, it no longer has an emergency clause, and I think we have a substitute, Mr. Chairman, which I am amenable to going right to if you'd like.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I with Ryan Brimmer's patience and endurance, have crafted a substitute for this. So if it would be the will, we'll just move it so that everybody can see it.
And then I can speak to it if you want, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, 100%. So did I hear someone move it?
I'll move the substitute, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, can we get a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So this substitute, I'll let Senator Dunnavant talk to it too, but just so everybody on the committee is aware, right? What we did is we broke it up into 4 sections. Which Ryan, is it up, or in the process of being up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I've posted it. I don't see it yet, but it should be up momentarily.
Okay, so I'll speak in broad strokes and then I'll pass it over. There's 4 sections in this bill. It's section 1, to Senator Dunnavant's point, right, gets to in-person schooling and mandates in-person schooling in the 21-22 school year and clarifies that in-person learning can be hybrid, but sets out expectations for the school systems under CDC guidance. Section 2 is about vaccines and ensuring that staff and teachers have access to the vaccine by the fall. Section 3 creates exceptions to in-person schooling, and there's 2 in there right now. And I think Senator Dunnavant will talk about a possible 3rd one that we talked about. The first one is about students who still want to stay virtual. If their parents request it, can stay virtual. The second exemption is if a school system can close down an individual school if there's a high level of spread in an individual school for COVID, and there's an enactment clause that requires VDH to have the metrics for what's a low, medium, and high level of spread in a school. And then section 4 is kind of a notwithstanding clause that just clarifies that this in no way gets in the way of teachers being able to teach virtually if they have an ADA waiver. And then the last thing I'll note is that it has a self-destruct clause, which says that this bill blows up on August 1, 2022, to be clear that we're not crafting new policy, we are legislating for the moment. And so with that, I'll pass it over to the senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with respect to the committee and its time, we all know an enormous amount about this issue. We know now and have the evidence that supports what the American Academy of Pediatrics warned us about last summer, and that is that the risk to children of not having in-person education is extraordinary. There have been significant learning losses. There is significant social emotional risk with depression, suicidal ideation, suicide, at risk at home for either food insecurities or not access to broadband or IT equipment. And the list goes on, and we're all familiar with that. The CDC guidelines that came out this weekend were outstanding, and they made it clear that schools were an essential part of infrastructure, not only to support children and overcome some of these challenges that they have to face when they don't have a safe place to be, which are specifically and exceptionally a high risk for lower income and minority children, but also that they're not a significant spread of COVID, that teachers are not at increased risk when they're teaching as compared to their same age counterparts in the community, and that schools should be the last thing that we close and the first thing that we open if we have to take extraordinary mitigation procedures. But in general, the mitigation procedures outlined by the CDC, including social distancing and masking and pods, et cetera, seem to be substantial and significant enough to protect children and teachers in school. So obviously my bill was a general statement to move this through the process. And as we get closer to finalizing legislation, I think your substitute puts some more flesh around it. I think there's some nuancing that we need to have going forward, and you and I have agreed to that. think it's very important that we express the parent's role in being able to define that the child needs in person, because that is, I think that's a principle in Virginia that we have, that we have that sovereignty of the parental, decision making for children. And so we're going to talk about some of those things going forward, but I think this is a nice next step in the bill that we need to have to answer and address the issues that we're facing in Virginia, and schools must open.